Hello and welcome to Matt Mojo, and today we are going to be counting down the top 10 movies I watched for the first time during the month of May 2021. This list won't be strictly limited to movies that were released during the month. It's any movie that I've never seen before that I finally watched for the first time. I won't be including any short films, documentaries, or films I've seen before, which unfortunately includes Yearly Departed, but that is a hilarious Amazon Prime comedy special led by 7 outstanding women who give comedic eulogies for the riddance of the unfortunate year that was 2020. Surely one to remember. Again, I know we're over halfway through the month of June, but I still wanted to make this video because I watched more movies this past month. Back in April, I only watched 26 new films, which was an unfortunate low for me, but in May, I increased that number up to 34 films watched for the first time. So without further ado, let's get into it. Made with an incredibly small budget of $20 million and making back the money 16 times that globally, The Conjuring is an undoubted success of a horror film. The film relies so heavily on horror stereotypes that it is widely predictable on what is going to happen, but it is enjoyable nonetheless. The film, based on the true story, introduces us to the Warrens, a married couple of ghost hunters that rescue a family from a haunting that has infected their newly moved into home. I am not normally a fan of horror movies and jump scares and the sort, but this was such a fun time. I actually had decided to watch all of the films a part of the Conjuring franchise in order to prepare for the release of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and sneak peek into next month. This is the third best movie in the Conjuring franchise as a whole. Although there are some glaring problems with the movie and the fact that it is so stuck to the original horror formula, it manages to do well at what is expected of it. Also, I noticed the more of these kind of horror films I watch, the less scared I am of them, so I guess I'm growing immune or something. I have seen one other movie by this director, which was Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales, and I will admit that that is one of the only movies I have ever walked out of halfway through. So going into this film, I wasn't too excited, but I needed to watch this in anticipation for Cruella, and thankfully I was not disappointed. Angelina Jolie returns as the famous Disney villain Maleficent, as her story continues to follow her as a sort of adoptive mother-like figure for Aurora, played by Elle Fanning. It's Aurora's wedding, but the prince's mother, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, has other intentions. I think it should be a rule now that Michelle Pfeiffer has at least one movie in my top 10 every month because she is so entertaining to watch every single time. Of course, Angelina Jolie is also wildly successful in the leading role that warranted her getting a sequel, and I am so excited for her in Eternals later this year. I'm going to be completely honest, the first hour of the film was a little slow and forgettable. I didn't really pay too much attention to what was going on. But the last hour, mainly the final battle scene, was some of the best filmmaking I had ever seen. It was like Rogue One, a Star Wars story level of fantastic end battle scenes because of how great it was. Plus, all of those other winged creatures, whatever they were, made me want wings too. The Hulu original Boss level takes the cliche story of a day that repeats itself into a different level. The Frank Grillo-led film acts almost as a video game that cleverly reveals more and more of the story through each life cycle. With a humoristic tone similar to the Deadpool films, I have no clue why this film isn't more widely talked about. It is also very similar to Deadpool in its goriness and bloodiness, which is entertainingly tasteful in this film. Honestly, I'm a bit surprised that this movie was able to make it into my top 10 for the month, but I guess there were just worse films that allowed this to stay up there, so that's that. If you watched my Zack Snyder video, you would know how excited I was for this movie and how hopeful I was for its quality, and I wasn't wrong. But I also wasn't right either. I remember saying that I either really love or really hate Zack Snyder films, and that there's no in between. Well, I guess I finally found that in between. Army of the Dead tells the story about a random team of people who invade the zombie-ridden Las Vegas in search of a vault of money. In an alternate universe, I would totally expect this to be another Suicide Squad movie. The cast for this film is entertaining for the most part, with notable standouts being Raul Castillo, Tig Notaro, and Matthias Schweighöfer. I am sorry if I mispronounce his name. But what if, like that Michelle Pfeiffer rule I mentioned earlier, I also make a rule that Tig Notaro be in at least one of my top 10 movies each month as well. But the film does have its downsides, particularly with Zack Snyder's flashiness and excessive runtime. Still, the movie needed to be a fun zombie slasher flick, and it succeeded at doing just that, while still being able to add more lore to the zombie genre than ever seen before. This film taught me more about the law and the United States justice system than my political science major. Legally Blonde follows Elle Woods as she goes into Harvard Law School to follow her ex-boyfriend whom she wants back. While she is there, she discovers her true potential and uses her personal knowledge to help her become a successful attorney. I can't believe it is taking me this long to finally watch this film, but I am happy it actually lived up to the hype. Elle Woods is such a girl boss in the non-derogatory way, and more in the role model type of way, and it is so fun to watch Reese Witherspoon play the character. I will mention though that the first half of the movie is so early 2000s and I didn't really care for it, but the last half was so brilliant and mind-blowing. Elle Woods really is one of the most clever and inspirational characters I have ever seen in cinema, and she is the reason why I have decided to not drop out of college, so thank you Elle Woods for being a role model to not just women, but to a male pre-law college student such as myself. Actually no, she's an inspiration to all people, no matter your sex, major, or educational status. After watching The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and live-action Aladdin, I was not really excited for any future Guy Ritchie films going forward, but this one majorly surprised me in such a refreshing way. While the movie is shown in a non-linear narrative, it benefits the major climax final scene that is surely a method of filmmaking to remember. H, a mysterious professional fighter, works as a cash collector for a company that moves money around in trucks, I think, but the further you delve into the story, the more that is revealed of H's true intentions. Although Jason Statham is once again playing the same character that he normally plays, it just shows how great he is at his casting type. Also, a longer running time such as this one is normally not enticing, but is necessary for this film. And again, another great performance by Raul Castillo, and I was so happy to see him in 3 different films in May alone, so I will send him all of my support. The only problem that is present in the film is Post Malone's acting. It is very brief and doesn't last past 3 minutes, but it's just so jarring to see. Zack Snyder's first attempt at the zombie flick and his first attempt at making a feature film as a whole is one of the greatest films I have ever seen. Dawn of the Dead is the second zombie genre movie on this list, but this time we follow our characters trapped within a shopping mall during the zombie apocalypse. I do believe that much of the success of this film is built off of James Gunn's clever writing, but it must be acknowledged of the positive effectiveness of Zack Snyder's stereotypical, flashy style. With a setting that can grow tired due to the circumstances of the story, Zack Snyder manages to continue interest within the story that allows him to employ a method of filmmaking that is honestly innovative and totally unique. I have never seen the original Dawn of the Dead movie that this is based off of, so I do not know how this new version shapes up in comparison, though I am able to admit that this is an entertaining zombie flick that successfully pairs well with Zack Snyder's very apparent directing style. Both the first A Quiet Place and this sequel are the type of movies that would classify as experiences that are essential to watching in a movie theater in order to be able to fully enjoy it. Luckily, I had managed to rent out a movie theater and watch this film with those that I am close with, which made this movie even more enjoyable. A Quiet Place Part 2 continues the story of the Abbott family as they desperately try to seek out for help in a world where silence is necessary. Fortunately, they encounter a familiar face to assist them in finding new ways to defeat these intergalactic audio-sensitive creatures. John Krasinski is one of the most inventive horror filmmakers of this era, and with fantastic performances by his cast, especially Emily Blunt, this movie fails at failing. I still hold strong the belief that Emily Blunt should have gotten an Oscar nomination for the first movie because she's just that amazing. A Quiet Place Part 2 is genre defining and breathes a breath of fresh air for horror films. It is movies like this that give me hope for the future of the genre. My only gripe about this film is that it is just as good as the first one, and that's not really a bad thing though. This is one of the most widely hated on films that I have seen recently, and I just don't understand why it is getting so many negative reviews. I honestly thought that this movie was brilliant. The Woman in the Window centers around Anna Fox, a woman who suffers from agoraphobia that causes her to get anxiety when placed in social situations, causing her to mainly stay within the confines of her home. A new family, the Russells, move into the house across the street from hers, and she becomes acquainted with the members of the family. But suddenly she witnesses a disturbing occurrence through their window. I've never read the book, I didn't even know this was a book, so I wouldn't know which version is better. But all I know is that Amy Adams is one of the greatest actresses of all time, and every performance of hers is perfect in my eyes. You guys would know after I nominated her for her Hillbilly Elegy performance. Julianne Moore also being in this movie is funny because they're both going to be in the Dear Evan Hansen movie later this year. The only one I didn't like was Gary Oldman, but I think that's just because of my extreme distaste for anything he does after watching Mank. The production design in this movie is spectacular, and I really love the cheesy horror style of filmmaking that this movie employs. I'm going to give a short spoiler alert here, so just skip to the last movie if you don't want to be spoiled. But the final battle scene of this movie is one of the greatest things I have ever seen. The part where the kid stabs fake Captain America and then Lois Lane screams to the staircase railing and then the camera just follows the bloody knife at the railing is so cheesy yet so satisfying. But my favorite shot in this film is where the kid takes that three-pronged handheld garden rake or whatever that was and just jabs it into Amy Adams' face. I know that sounds very gruesome of me to say, but I just loved how campy it was and I laughed so loud at that part. I don't know, it was really just brilliant in my eyes. I seriously mean it when I say this is one of the greatest movies I have ever seen. This is definitely the best 2021 movie I've seen so far. Cruella gives an origin story to the popular puppy killer and Dalmatian print coat wearer from 101 Dalmatians. Set in 1970s punk rock era London, an aspiring fashion designer, Estella, works under the Baroness, a world-renowned fashion legend. Throughout their not-so-partnership, the Baroness's true intentions and troubled past are revealed to awaken the competitive spirit of Cruella within Estelle. For the people that are against this movie because Cruella is a puppy killer and they don't want to sympathize with the character, your intentions are in the right place, but please watch the movie before you make your judgment. That isn't a spoiler on anything really, just people need to watch films before judging them. That should be a standard practice at this point. But moving on to the actual quality of the film, the acting performances are stellar. Jasper and Horace, played by Joel Fry and Paul Walter Hauser respectively, are a hilarious comedic duo that are essential to the story and could honestly inspire their own Disney Plus show on their own. Emma Thompson is one of my favorite actresses because of her brilliant performance in Saving Mr. Banks, and again, here she knocks it out of the park with her role as the Baroness. A character that is so disgustingly yet unapologetically evil that somehow manages to stay captivating for audiences to watch is one of my surefire nominations for Best Supporting Actress at next year's Academy Awards, though realistically I don't think the Academy would do it, but they should. Another thing they should do for this movie is give Emma Stone another damn Oscar for her leading performance because it is truly one to remember. I've seen a lot of people initially compare her performance as another Angelina Jolie as Maleficent or Joaquin Phoenix as Joker, which are both valid, but what about the option where she's just Emma Stone giving a fantastic performance as Cruella? With such nuance and such grace, Emma Stone was the perfect fit for this role. For a while, I thought Lady Gaga would do a better job, but then I watched the movie and suddenly realized the greatness that Emma Stone is truly capable of. Again, let's make it another rule that Emma Stone has at least one film make my top 10 each month too. Besides the acting, the production design is superb with one of the greatest sets I've ever seen. The makeup and hairstyling was also pretty good. There were just a few strange wigs here or there, but that didn't bother me too much. But what really stands out is the costume design. Being a film that has its characters so involved within the fashion industry, the costuming teams did not disappoint. Both Cruella and the Baroness had outstanding costumes that definitely locked this movie in for that Oscar nomination. Especially that trash dress, one of the most genius things I've ever seen. When the Met Gala had that camp theme a few years ago, Cruella should have been invited because she would have absolutely killed it. Speaking of campiness, the scene where the mom gets pushed off the cliff made me actually laugh out loud. I know she died and it was supposed to be a really sad event, but I was in hysterics. Don't worry, I'm not spoiling anything really, since this happens within the first 10 minutes of the movie. I feel like the scene was made to be that way though. Almost as if it were self-aware of the character and the ironic tone that could be taken with the story. I definitely want to see a sequel to this movie, and the way the film ends perfectly sets up one. Anyway, those were the top 10 movies I watched for the first time in May 2021. Across the screen, you should be seeing a bunch of films running around of those that didn't make it into the top 10 this month. Some were good, and some were really bad. But you could just check my letterbox to see my reviews and ratings of those.